Hi guys, so I'm back. Yes, I'm back. So I'm just going to wait and see whether we get anybody on today. So far, nothing. Hi guys, so I'm back. Oh, let's turn the sound off on my phone because otherwise I'm going to be hearing anything. Oh, here we go. Hey Louise. Hey Roy. If I turn it that way, do I get the comments up? No, so I have to have it that way. Okay. So let's see if I can balance that. Okay, so today I'm going to talk, so moving on from yesterday's chat about what we can do to boost our immune system. So today we're going to go in the opposite direction, and we're going to go to what we can eat which will actually not aid our immune system at all in any way, shape or form. So basically, because we're having the whole issue with the coronavirus or COVID-19, whichever way you want to phrase it, obviously what I'm going to do is try and help people out by suggesting better ways of eating in order to prevent, or not prevent because it won't prevent it, but to give your body the best chance of fighting off infection. So as requested by Lainey and Lincoln, Toby's children, I'm going to talk about stuff that's probably not quite good, so good. See, hello Benny. Hello Benny. So Benny's joining us today. He may jump up from time to time. I'm going to sit back a little bit because I'm a little bit close to the camera. So here's Benny. Hello Benny. Can't see him. Here he is. Hey Benny. So he's on my lap at the moment. So if I look like I'm doing weird things, I'm stroking the dog. Okay. So what we're going to have a look at today. Is things that aren't great for your immune system. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. So obviously we're very well aware of vitamin C and stuff like that boosting our immune system. But our immune system is basically our defense against infection. So if our immune system is compromised, our chances of infection are a lot higher. So we try to prevent that if we can. We try to give it as much assistance as we can. So yesterday I addressed what you can do to help boost your immune system. And today I am going to address the things that can actually help suppress your immune system or increase your chances of infection or increase the length of time of infection that you may have. Hey Christopher. Sorry, not all my messages are coming through on my phone, so I'm just going to reboot that, and then hopefully we're going to be getting a bit more info. So what I'm going to do is address those situations of food and stuff that we can eat that or we do eat that suppress our immune system. So I'm playing with technology yet again today, and obviously you guys know from experience that me and technology don't mix very well. So what I'm going to do now is address one of the first things we often eat and which will not help with our immune system. So I'm just going to put my magic thing up here, and we get a little picture in the corner. So fast food. Fast food is something that the Western world has very much been addicted to for probably the last 30 to 40 years. And Western people eat probably way too much salt, sugar than is probably necessary in our diets. So you're probably all sitting there thinking, oh, you know, the odd McDonald's or or donut or whatever. It can't be that bad for you. Well, yes, actually it can. A study on Western diet triggers and how they affect you. There was a study done in, I think if I remember rightly, 2016, 2017, and then a more recent one done on innate immune reprogramming in 2018. It found that by eating crap food or diet or fast food, we actually reprogram the way our immune system reacts to potential problems or issues. So we end up putting so much stress on it that it ends up in an extreme state of sort of constant high alert. It's Benny. So basically what happens is that when we're in that constant state of high alert, so if you eat junk food quite a lot, it's very difficult for your body to switch back. So the body will respond to kind of invaders. It kind of almost ends up into like a hyperactive state, like almost like when you have hay fever or something like that, your body's overreacting, so you produce too much histamine, so you end up having to take antihistamines so that you don't end up with that allergy. Your immune system almost ends up in that same kind of state, and it's sort of an acute response state, and basically it just stays in this ready to act stage, which puts immense stress on our immune system. So what does that mean in short term? Not overly much. If you don't eat regular junk food, it's not going to cause an issue. But if you're eating more than is probably good for you, then what it means is basically your immune system is not going to respond the same way as a healthy immune system, and you're being a pain. Do you know that? You are being a pain. You are being a pain. So basically, it just becomes incredibly stressed and not as efficient. So the long story short is that, yes, junk food actually will do quite a lot of damage to your immune system over a prolonged period of time if you're eating it on a regular basis. So what we need to try and do instead is maybe reduce the amount of junk food we're eating, but also maybe rather than going to a takeaway, which will probably mean that your food is containing a lot of salt, highly processed meats, less greens, and so we're not getting the nutrients that we want. Maybe making alternative sort of healthier versions. So I tend to make things like cheeseburgers and stuff at home. That's not to say I don't get takeaway. Obviously I have the disadvantage of being celiac, so it means that I can't actually eat an awful lot of takeaways anyway unless I trust the place that I'm going to. So I don't tend to eat junk food from takeaways. But having said that, I do tend to make cheeseburgers and such like myself. You're going to have less additives, you're going to have less preservatives, your body's not going to be quite so stressed out as it would be if you were eating something like, say, a high street chain store burger. I'm not going to mention names, but we all know what I'm talking about. So you can eat nuts, you can eat healthy bars and stuff like that. If you're travelling and you find you get caught short, which we all do, there's better snacks to have than, say, the chocolate bar that you reach for in a general state. You know, you can choose nuts, fruit, anything like that, really. So I'm not saying that don't eat junk food, because we all have that moment where we all love a cheeseburger or pizza or whatever. But just obviously be aware that it does put stress on your immune system. Yeah, okay. Love a cheeseburger. Yes, we all love a cheeseburger. So, secondly, things that put stress on your immune system. This one's a bit of a controversial one. There's a lot of studies been done on that, and the jury's still out on it. But I personally feel that this bad boy here is not great. So actually, let me just put that down for a minute. MSG. So monosodium glutamate. It's a salt derived from glutamic acid. It's abundant quite naturally. It's probably one of the most abundant non-essential amino acids. I can't talk today. found naturally. It's found in tomatoes, grapes, cheese, nuts, mushrooms, things like that. The problem is obviously it's extracted by men. It's not like it's man-made rather. I'm not doing very well with words today. Sorry. So it's not a natural product in itself, and you know it's used. Why? I mean, people say why they use it. It gives that kind of sort of meaty umami taste to foods. So that's why it's used a lot in things like Chinese foods, chicken sort of based foods, that sort of thing. So it gives it a bit of flavour. The problem is, although studies haven't been conclusive, there have been studies where it's been found to compromise your thymus and your spleen. So everyone's just taken a huge step back and gone, oh, what is your thymus and your spleen? Okay. So quickly, I told you not to have wine before going live. Yeah, I know, right? So the spleen, your spleen, you've distracted me now. Spleen plays multiple supporting roles in your body. It as a filter for your blood. It's part of the immune system. It gets rid of old red blood cells. It recycles them. And platelets and white blood cells are stored in your spleen. I'm going to sneeze. I haven't got a cold, by the way. It's just every now and again I have these random sneezing fits. Take a deep breath. So, okay, the spleen also helps fight certain kinds of bacteria. So I am actually looking at the comments on the phone here. So it helps with kinds of bacteria that you have to fight off, causing things like pneumonia and meningitis. And the thymus, which is the other one that we mentioned, or I mentioned rather, is quite a specialised primary lymphoid organ. It helps with the immune system. It produces or helps T cells mature. So what are T cells? Well, T cells are really critical to the adaptivity of your immune system. So how the body adapts to foreign invaders such as viruses. So obviously if MSG is found to interfere with those two major immune system entities, then obviously it's something we probably want to avoid. So it does cause, or has been found in some studies to cause oxidative stress in both of these organs, and it causes them to produce fewer lymphocytes, making it more likely that they're not going to be able to work, and then you're going to end up with sort of like an immune system overreaction. So the good news is that we can eat foods that don't actually have MSG in it, and also if you avoid it, these effects do appear to be reversible. So it's not something that would permanently damage your thymus or your spleen, but because a couple of studies have found or have been found to cause see this MSG does cause problems with these, I feel that it's probably not the wisest thing to be eating. I mean, when you think that you can get chicken, meats, stuff like that, there's plenty of flavourings out there. You don't need MSG. The problem is MSG is very cheap to produce. It packs out the food with flavours, and it's just one of those things that kind of, it's insidious. It's kind of snuck into food production over the years, and it's not going to go away anytime soon unless people actually avoid it. So restaurants do use it a lot, I'm afraid, so you'll probably find that it's quite difficult to avoid it if you go out to eat. And they use it like as natural alternatives to meat, and mushrooms and like sort of the meaty kind of things that you would eat, and sometimes kind of use it in place of flavourings like high quality sort of cheeses that would flavour foods such as like parmesan and stuff like that, because obviously it's a lot cheaper. So I'm gonna pop this up here because MSG appears in your food and it's not always obvious that it's in there. So MSG can often be called by other names, probably which we're not overly aware of. So there's a list of names there, and I bet you have quite a few there that you've kind of gone, whoa, wasn't expecting that. So obviously MSG. Gelatin can be referred to as, it's not particularly wise to refer to it as gelatin because it's not, but it does. Calcium calcinate, obviously monosodium glutamate because that's actually what it is. Hydrolyzed vegetable protein. Textured protein. So a lot of people who eat vegetarian foods will have a lot of this stuff in there without realising. Hydrolyzed plant proteins. Monopotassium glutamate. Yeast extract. Now, yeast extract's a funny one because actually a lot of the time it is yeast extract, but just to let you know that sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is MSG. It gives you that same kind of bothery, meaty flavour that you would get from other foods. Or typically yeast extract, obviously. Glutamate, obviously. Autolyzed plant protein, yeast food or nutrient, glutamic acid, sodium caseinate, autolyzed yeast. So there's a few names that might pop up that you won't realise that are actually could be MSG. I'm not saying that they are 100% all the time, but they could be. So often when things are labelled, they're not exactly mislabelled as such, but they can be misleading when you read them. So be very much aware of that fact. So I'm just going to remove those. So now I seem to be able to manage to actually speak English, which I seem to be struggling with. So the next one we're going to hit, and it's an obvious one, and I have actually hit on this in yesterday's chat. So I'm going to pop this one up. Depressing as it is for some of you, I know. Yes, alcohol. Alcohol is an immunosuppressant. So many of you may have over the years noticed that when you've gone on a bit of a bender at the weekend or possibly longer, which some of us done in the past, especially in our 20s, it's easier to pick up a bug than maybe when you haven't done that, because alcohol does affect your immune system. So not to be too kind of technical about what it does, but it will affect certain areas of your immune system, like the function of your macrophages. Now, some of you may have heard that term in films and stuff like that. Basically, they're your little soldiers that kind of attack foreign invaders. So if you're drinking sort of large quantities of alcohol, these bad boys are going to affect that, and it does impair your production of T cells and B cells, both of which act as your first responders. So basically, they are your paramedics. So if your paramedics aren't there, your infections are more likely to take a hold. Also, alcohol does affect your hormones, and it does disrupt your sleep patterns. So your circadian rhythm will be affected if you're drinking alcohol. Now, if you drink excessive amounts of alcohol, I mean, I don't drink an awful lot at all. I have the occasional glass here and there, but I don't drink a lot. But I have noticed that if I do drink, I quite often wake up random times in the night, or might even wake up incredibly early in the morning. This is because it does mess around with your sleep patterns, and your sleep cycles are very much connected with your immune system. So if you have changes in your circadian rhythm or your sleep patterns and you're feeling unwell, before you know it, those effects are going to be very, very noticeable very, very quickly, especially people who drink to excess. It will temporarily lower your immune function, and you may find that you're more susceptible to picking up infection over that period of time where you're recovering from alcohol. So what can you do? Well, there are better options of alcohol out there. I hate to say this, and I probably shouldn't say this, but wine and beer tend to be better than spirits in terms of how they abuse your immune system. Obviously, in moderation. I'm not saying go out and get ratted on beer and wine, but they tend to be a little bit more lenient on your immune system. The other thing is obviously drink plenty of water if you are drinking, because alcohol will dehydrate your body. Dehydrated body doesn't function properly. So the better hydrated you are, the better. I know, Sean. I'm really sorry, darling. I hate to say it. Don't worry. There's another one in here. You may actually see me break down and cry at what's coming up. I know. I know. I'm sorry. So yeah, so if you do happen to go out on a bender, make sure that you rehydrate as quickly as possible. So drink plenty and plenty of water. It makes sure you flush the alcohol out of your body, and it does help prevent the dreaded hangover. And that's the reason why I don't drink, really. It's not really because it's better for you not to drink. It's more because I just cannot handle the hangover. So the next one I'm going to address, and this one is, you're going to laugh at this one. You're all going to laugh at this one. Yeah, this one is for me. This one right here, I'm going to see if I can point to it. That one right there. That is aiming straight in my heart like a knife. Caffeine. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages to caffeine, but in terms of your immune system, caffeine can be a bit of a bugger. It does have unwanted effects on your immune system. Will there be anything left, Emma? Yeah. As much as I'm mentioning these things, I'm not saying you can't ever have them. I'm just saying that obviously be aware that there are things that are going to affect the immune system. And unfortunately, it's all the fun stuff. It really is all the fun stuff. So, yeah. Yeah, dust. Dust will be left. So yeah, that kind of kick in the arse that you get in the morning from caffeine does have a side effect. It will increase your cortisol. Now, cortisol is your fight or flight hormone. It's released in response to stress. Does have an effect on your metabolism and mood, obviously, but it can lower your immune function. And if you have, oh my god, I can't believe I'm saying this. If you regularly have high levels of caffeine, you're going to put more stress on your immune system. Oh my god, this is depressing. So, this bad boy. Oh, I've just discovered I can enlarge, and oh, look at that. Oh my gosh, I've just done technology. Look at that. I've just done technology. So, the other side effect of that is, oh, face, Jesus. It can reduce your number of T cells that your body produces. So, yeah, caffeine, much as we love it, and I quite frankly will hold my hands up and say I probably drink way too much coffee than is sensible. I have one vice in life, and that is coffee, so I am not giving that bad boy up. So, but you would be surprised how many places caffeine hides. You know, people immediately jump to the conclusion, coffee, I'm just going to stop drinking coffee. It's not always in coffee. I don't drink alcohol, so I'll stick with the coffee. Yeah, me too, John. Me too, buddy. I'm right there with you. So it can hide in all sorts of random places that you're not aware of. It's in chocolate. Now, some of you probably are aware of that. Some of you maybe not so much. It can be in some soft drinks, and it can be in some cereals, believe it or not. And even some medications. You know, I say to people, always check what's in your medication. Because some of it, you know, much as your doctor should be doing that for you, some stuff does interact with each other. I'll eat more veg, honest. Yeah, I eat loads of veg, so I'm not going to worry. Annabelle, you do decaf and D. Yeah, great. I don't really drink tea. I don't like tea very much, so I don't drink. I don't really drink it. So decaf tea is not really on the agenda. And decaf coffee, quite frankly, is disgusting. So yeah, it is a surprise, isn't it, Emma? But it hides in weird places. Honestly, check the amount of places that you find caffeine. It is really odd, the places that you will find it. So, whilst I'm saying kind of avoid things like caffeine, obviously, not to. I mean, I won't give up coffee. I'm going to hold my hands up to that. But all I'm saying is just be very aware that there are places that caffeine hides without you realising it. So, although we may give up like the obvious ones, sometimes it's kind of hidden within things we're not so much aware of. So, the next one. I bet you're all getting to this point where you're going, oh my god, there's going to be no food left. So this one here, I'm going to look at this. I can't believe I've just discovered how to enlarge stuff. So obviously I'm not saying don't eat pesticides because that's really stupid. What? Although don't eat pesticides because that is really stupid. So I'm just going to underline that particular statement. What I'm saying is pesticide laden and like quick ripened fruits and vegetables. You know, like forced fruits and vegetables. I mentioned this yesterday. I briefly touched on it yesterday. I can't watch anymore. You're killing me. So a lot of mass-produced vegetables and stuff like that, fruits are. Wait, we are killing us. Yes, we are. We are killing us slowly but surely through stuff that we've been doing for years. We are slowly killing ourselves. So, although I've obviously been banging on about avoiding foods that are intrinsically bad for us in regards to our immune system, what I am actually going to touch on is the fact that many of us, without realising, are probably consuming pesticides without realising. So the majority of our fresh fruit and veg these days, unless you get organic, and even then it's not 100% guaranteed that it's going to be pesticide free. Pesticides get carried on the wind, they can be in the soil, and although organic farms are supposed to check these things, you can't check whether or not there's pesticides floating on the winds. And so we probably all consume pesticides without realising it. Especially sort of, you see the forced greenhouse stuff. That tends to be quite pesticide ridden. So, oh, basically, I was just trying to move that a little bit so it wasn't quite so far across. So basically, what we need to do is understand that pesticides will have a direct impact on the bacteria in the gut, and we need to understand that without our gut working at 100%, your immune system's not going to work very well. So your gastrointestinal tract is home to more immune cells than any other part of your body. And I know a lot of you have heard me bang on about this before, which is why I say about eating well is going to be doing more for your immune system than anything else. If your gut is not right, the rest of your immune system is not going to be right. Your immune system is about 80% driven by your gut. What if you wash the fruit or veg with warm water? Now, the problem is there's a lot of pesticides are actually waterproof. Now, that if it makes sense when you think about it, because if they get rained on and they get washed off, what's the point of using pesticides? You actually have to scrub your veg, and I'm talking about scrubbing it. If you've got apples, carrots, anything like that. Sorry, not so much root veg because that tends to be in the ground, although that will absorb pesticides. But anything that grows on a bush or a tree and is going to get sprayed, you actually need to scrub that. It's not going to come off just by rinsing it under the tap. So if I have things like lettuce or cauliflowers or stuff like that, I will literally scrub the surface off. If I have a lettuce, I will take the outer leaves off before I actually scrub it. So I make sure that whatever can be sort of residual on that crown, if you like, is taken off. Now things like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, etc., they're going to be a little bit more difficult to clean. Because by the time you've cleaned it, you've taken off most of the outside. So those are the sort of things. If you can't afford to buy organic, things like broccoli, sprouts, those sort of things, those are things you probably should buy organic because you're. Sorry, I keep getting distracting because I got my picture on the screen and I'm looking at that rather than the camera, so I'm looking kind of off in a weird direction. So yeah, you those sort of the vegetables you can't clean sensibly are probably the ones that you should choose to eat organically, and then the ones that maybe if you're budgeting and you can't afford to eat organic 100%, those are the things that you should make sure that you scrub really well under the tap. So things like tomatoes, apples, any tree fruits, vine fruits as well. All of it will be, unless stated otherwise, as organic. All of it will have some form of pesticide used to clean it. So obviously, because this affects your microbes and your intestinal functions, your immune system is going to be very much compromised, and your intestinal wall does act as a defence, keeping out undesirable bacteria. and environmental toxins as well. But there's only so much it can do, and once it's had enough of them, it's going to be really hard to maintain enough decent bacteria in your gut to fight off anything on top of that. So if you think about it, a lot of people who take antibiotics and stuff like that, they really struggle with gut problems. I mean, I know a lot of people when they're on antibiotics either end up with diarrhea or stomach issues as a result of taking antibiotics, mainly because it kills off everything, not just the bad bacteria that you might have, but also the good bacteria. And we do actually need good bacteria in our guts. So you do end up developing other problems as a side effect of taking as a side effect of taking antibiotics. So yes, what we need to do is maybe be a bit more sensible about where we choose our foods from, and maybe be a bit more picky about the stuff that we can't actually clean. Yeah, I mean it's not they do have to they can't just sell you fruit and veg that's absolutely covered in pesticides and stuff. Obviously, it goes through a cleaning process, but there will be some residual stuff left on there. And a lot of farms, if you're going straight from farm to shop, won't necessarily be scrubbed in the process. So it's up to you to do that. Um, so yeah, look after your gut, and your gut will look after your immune system, basically. So we're coming on to the last one, and I saved the best one for last. And I'm gonna pause a second before I actually do this. Anyone know what my last food substance is going to be that I'm going to put up? Is anyone going to hazard a guess at this? I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. Give me like 10-15 seconds, because there is a bit of a lag between me talking on the camera and your responses coming up. But anyone want to actually hazard a guess as to what exactly I'm going to put up next? Because I think some of you will guess, and some of you possibly not. Nothing yet. Come on, John, you're normally pretty good with this. Emma, hazard a guess? Is it dust? Because that's all we have left. No, it's not dust. So I'm going to put it up. None of you have guessed it yet, but I'm going to put it up. Here it is. This bad boy. Oh, I'm trying to expand it. There we go. This bad boy is responsible for a lot of problems. There we go. Let's make it more sensible size. Yes, this is sugar. So it's no surprise that sugar is on the list, is it? You're not here at the moment. You're having two conversations at the moment. Sorry. Okay. You said that. Well done, Emma. Well done. Obviously, I've banged on about sugar for years. It's disgracefully addictive, more so than most drugs. And just because it doesn't have any immediate apparent effects doesn't mean it's not doing some damage. And when I'm referring to this, I am, excuse me, I'm just going to, 2 seconds, I'm just going to blow my nose. Sorry about that, you didn't want to see that live on Facebook, so I just quickly blew my nose. So yes, sugar is not great for many reasons, but also especially to do with your immune system, because there are some strains of bacteria that absolutely love sugar, and I mean they go mad over it. And the more you eat, the faster they grow, so it allows them to crowd out your good bacteria, and the good guys that are responsible for all your fun stuff, the stuff that keeps your body ticking over. It gets put to one side by the invading bacteria that's feeding off the sugar that you're eating. It can have a negative effect on your mood, your blood sugar levels, and of course your immune system. So how does it do that? Well, sugar does actually directly... Hey Benny, come on in. No, coming up, coming down. Coming up, coming down. What are you doing? Okay, sorry. So, yes, it directly impacts your immune system. Why? Because it will compete with space in your system with vitamin C. The cure vitamin that I was banging on about yesterday for your immune cells, the more sugar you have in the system, the harder it is for your immune cells to get vitamin C. So if you have a diet that is really high in sugar, you can end up with an up to kind of 30 to 40% decrease in the effectiveness of the vitamin C in your system after you consume sugar. So again, if you have a look at you had a Casper's once, the next day I felt like I had a hangover. Yeah, a lot of that will be the insulin spike that you've had from the sugar. But yeah, you can get that feeling of kind of being sugar hungover. Yes, so now I've lost my train of thought, thanks. Um, yeah, so you can lose up to 30 to 40% of the effectiveness of the vitamin C that's actually in your system. So if you check your vitamin C, if you take a vitamin C supplement, probably worthwhile to check to see whether it does actually contain sugar, because if it does, it's actually reducing the effectiveness of the vitamin C that you are taking. So an unexpected side effect of sugar, not just the addictiveness and the weight gain and the effects that it has on insulin and stuff like that, and the possibility of giving you diabetes, you also have the possibility of just sort of decreasing the effectivity of vitamin C, and by therefore decreasing your immune system function. So, what do we do about that? Well, there's an easy solution. Reduce your sugar intake. Now, this sounds easier than it actually is, because most foods these days contain sugar. In the sort of 60s, 70s, when the kind of no fat movement took off, the original diet foods, some of us are actually old enough to remember how disgusting they were. They were horrifically unpalatable. So some of us can actually remember what they were like. And the reason being is because they took the fat out. Now, fat carries flavour, so they needed to actually put something else in there to take away from that. Hey, Tobes. You're late, old son. Yeah, you are. So in order to get the flavour, they started adding things like sugars and flavourings and E numbers, etc., to try and give food a little bit more flavour. So in this kind of low fat or zero fat kind of era, where people were blaming fat for people being fat, rather than actually people just eating way too much of what they actually didn't need, this is how sort of sugar started to sneak back into our foods, and it's kind of stayed there ever since. And a lot of the foods, if you look at a lot of the foods that you're now eating, next time you're in the supermarket, I challenge you to pick up a pack of sliced chicken, and if you don't find sugar on there, I'll be very surprised. So sugar kind of sneaks its way into our everyday foods without even realising it. So the challenge of actually eliminating sugar from our diet is actually harder than most people realise. So unless you're eating 100% fresh food all the time, you're not going to be able to eliminate processed sugars from your diet. But what you can do is obviously eliminate the fairly obvious ones. So you know, uh, I did the no sugar diet for about, I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks, and it's not hard for me because I tend to eat kind of whole single ingredient foods anyway. But actually, there was a lot of stuff I was quite surprised that I did eat, that you sort of think, oh no, I can't really eat that because it's got processed sugar in it. I'm not talking about natural sugars, although even natural sugars you do have to kind of be a little bit more sensible with. You know, there are higher sugared fruits that I would sort of generally say to avoid, things like melons and papaya and mango, stuff like that, because they are naturally high in sugar, and fructose is actually a lot harder for our body to process than even cane sugar. So you could still find yourself having a way more sugar than you realise just by eating fruit and stuff like that. So, but you will gradually realise that your taste buds alter, and because your taste buds alter, things that you didn't previously think of as being sweet actually become very sweet. I've discovered when I kind of eliminated sugar from my diet, simple things like oats, and when I could eat oats, um, bread. I mean, bread's got sugar in it, and I found that very sweet. Sweet potato, I almost couldn't stomach. It was so sweet. So all of a sudden, you've kind of weaned yourself off of that highly sweet kind of addictive flavour, and you realise that actually you don't need it in your diet so much, and things that you previously didn't particularly think of as being sweet become very sweet. So that's a challenge you can try just out of interest for yourself. You don't have to, obviously, but yeah, it's a good one. So there's going to be another thing that I'm going to touch on very briefly, but it's not kind of a massive thing, but just something I just kind of want to make you guys aware of, especially over the last few years where fats have kind of been de-vilified, and now we see a lot more kind of speciality oils and stuff like that kicking about. Um, I just want to make you guys aware of the fact that if your oils or fats that you're using have been processed, um, as in they haven't gone through a cold press system, they're likely not to contain the vitamins and minerals that they're telling you they contain. So so things like rapeseed oil, olive oil, even coconut oil, stuff like that. If you're using those as healthier fats, avocado oil is another one. If you're using them as healthier fats, but they're not cold pressed, they're likely not to be very beneficial in regards to vitamin and omega-3 content. So I know a lot of people kind of go, oh, they've picked up like a bottle of cooking fat and it says rapeseed oil on there, and then they pick up another bottle of cold pressed rapeseed oil and they go, well, it's the same thing. Actually, it's not. It really isn't. The kind of £3 to £4 bottle of cold pressed rapeseed oil will have far more nutrients in it than the highly processed, cheap chip fat rapeseed oil that you're picking up that's sort of 50p or whatever. So although it's not damaging obviously to eat those, I'm just saying that they're less likely to be as beneficial as what you think they are. So if you're using them as dressing oils and stuff like that to help bolster your immune system, just make sure that you are actually using cold pressed oils as much as you can, rather than kind of the more highly processed ones. So there are other ways that we can benefit our immune system other than taking supplements, which I mentioned yesterday, and that's one of them. I mean, we'd just kind of be a bit more sensible about what we are eating and avoiding stuff that can actually impair our immune system. It's difficult, especially in this day and age when fast food and stuff like that is so much more readily available. Packet food, processed food, there's so much of it out there, and I know there's a lot of us out there that bang on about single ingredients foods and whole foods and stuff like that. And it's not because we're being precious about it or anything like that. It is literally because eating processed foods has so many different side effects. It's not just about getting fat. It's not just about increasing your chances of diabetes. It's not even just about increasing your kind of high cholesterol levels, or your blood pressure through excessive salt. It has such a knock-on effect with everything. It's not just appearance. So in this day and age when people sort of, they come to me and they ask about food and diet and stuff like that, and they expect me to kind of whack them on a chicken and broccoli diet, and when they get their diet back and they're kind of like, oh, there's like loads of stuff on here that I didn't think I would be able to eat. And I'm like, unless you're a competitive athlete, and you need a specific diet to provide for that specific sport that you're doing, general population, you're going to need a really varied diet. You want to be able to balance everything. You want to make sure that you're getting enough vitamins and minerals. You want to make sure that you're fats are at a decent level. You want to make sure that you're getting enough carbohydrate to fuel whatever it is you're doing, whether it's work or training or just day-to-day living. And you know, make sure that your protein levels are right for what you're doing, and that is across the board, whether you're a meat eater, whether you're vegetarian or vegan. You know, I mean, protein's been a big thing over the last sort of couple of years, and people were sort of raving about protein and stuff, and now people are vastly overestimating the amount of protein they actually need in order to achieve their goals. And it's kind of had that knock-on effect, a bit like when, you know, in the 70s, 60s and 70s, when they said, you know, fat's bad, they took it all out, nobody was eating fat, people got sick because there is a lot of fat-soluble vitamins that you can't absorb without actually having fat in your diet. People started developing other problems, calcium deficiencies and all sorts of other issues that tied in with the fact that they were eliminating fat from their diet. So yeah, when people come to me and they go, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting you to put olive oil in there. I wasn't expecting you to put this in there. I wasn't expecting you to put that in there," and I'm like, "No, this diet is designed to actually keep you optimally healthy without piling on the pounds. You don't have a specific kind of sport that you're doing. You're not kind of trying to increase your energy output or hit PBs. And why should I be kind of focusing more on results rather than nutrition?" And that's not to say with my athletes I don't sort of focus on nutrition, but obviously there's always going to be a results goal in mind. So having said that, obviously in the times we're in, you know, we're all shut indoors. Tendency is to kind of amuse ourselves with maybe baking cakes, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not criticising for baking cakes, but obviously then there's a temptation to eat them. The alcohol's there's a lack of things to do, so it's very, very tempting to kind of slip into really bad habits, nutritionally wise. So just kind of highlighting sort of the negative sides of nutrition in regards to your immune system, with a view to you guys actually just kind of taking a step back and thinking, actually, that's not going to do me much good if I keep doing that. Once in a blue moon, occasionally is fine. Doing it on a regular basis, not so much. So that's my nutrition talk for today. Hopefully it's kind of giving you some information, or some, pun intended, food to thought. And then if there's any questions, obviously pop them down below. This video will be put up on the War Machines page and also the Superhumans page on Facebook, and it will also put up on the the Superhumans page on YouTube, the Superhumans channel. So you'll be able to access it. If you don't want to wade through gubbins and gubbins of random memes and rubbish, then by all means subscribe to the Superhumans channel on YouTube, and then you'll be able to access this video a lot easier than kind of wading through loads of other nonsense on Facebook. So if you've got any questions, by all means pop them on underneath. I'll get back to you. I'm not gonna the video is gonna be uploaded after it's kind of more wine. I actually haven't had any yet. It's sat there in the glass and I haven't actually partaken yet. So I am a bit rubbish. I quite often like the idea of it, and I'll have a couple of mouthfuls and then it doesn't get drunk anyway. So yeah, I'm not great. I'm not great with the alcohol side of things, but I like the idea, but it doesn't always kind of get drunk. So yeah. So any questions, just pop them underneath, and I will endeavour to answer them for you. 5:30 tomorrow. We're back to doing our. Are you sure? No, I'm incompetent. It's nothing to do with alcohol. I'm just massively incompetent. So yeah. Stop distracting me. Stop distracting me. I'm trying to say something and I'm really easily distracted, and now I don't know what I was talking about. Not that I knew what I was talking about anyway, but yes. Put your comments below. I'll endeavour to answer them. And yes, fitness classes back on from 5:30 tomorrow. So weekdays I'll be doing a fitness class at 5:30, but you're more than welcome to join me, guys. And then obviously at the weekends, 5:30, we'll be doing like a little nutrition chat. So yeah, tomorrow I am going to be digging out some resistance bands. We'll be making use of those. So those of you who've got resistance bands at home, you'll be able to do some stuff with those. We're going over them, but it'll also be body weight stuff as well. So if you haven't got resistance bands, you can use body weight as well. And if you haven't got resistance bands, there's a possibility of using tin cans, bottles, anything. Just anything that's got a bit of weight to it and you can hold in both hands. By all means do so. Children, they count. Animals, as long as they're yours, don't go nicking other people's dogs. That gets frowned on. Anyway, I'm going to stop waffling. I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.